my dear student, I'm Mr. Kitwala from Educare. I will be with you in physics for Form 5. And today we are going to start a new topic which is called measurements. So in Form 5, my dear student, we have several topics. Among of the topic, we have these measurements. And this measurement earliest we was started as the subtopic of mechanics. But for this day, we term this measurement be a topic for Form 5. So my dear student, when we talk about the measurement, this is the process of assigning number or events. Any activity that involve measurements that need us to record the data, it takes place and the presence of measurements. Let us take an example, labda tunataka tuweze kuanzisha ujenzi, kwamba lazima tuweze kuchukua vipimo ambavyo vinahitajika sana sana kwenye nyumba. For all of that we term as the measurements. But my dear student, these measurements have two subtopics. Among of the subtopic of measurements, we have subtopic number 1, which is called the physical quantity. And also we have the errors. On the first topic, my dear student, we are going to see how the quantity can be applied on during the measurements. We want to take the data, or we want to record the data. How will you use these quantities so as to record the data? But on this second subtopic, which is called the error, we are going to see how the error erupted during the experiment or during the measurements. We know that any activity involve or have its own errors. Either the error that exists due to through the instruments, or the error that is caused by the human body or by the human beings. Kwa tunapokuwa tunafanya measurements, kwamba always tunapata errors. Kwa the errors always obtained by taking the true value, then we minus by the measured value, or sometimes the true value tunaziita ni actual values. Kwa ili tuweze kutambua kwamba there is the errors, it means we are supposed to take the true value or the actual value, then we minus with the measured values, zile data ulizoweza kuzirekodi. So after getting the concept or overview of this topic, my dear student, let us start the first subtopic of the measurements, which is called the physical quantities. Let us go and see the definition of the physical quantity. As you can see here, my dear student, physical quantity are the properties of matter that can be measured. Any activity that involves the recording of the data, we call it as the physical quantities. The quantity of recording, or the quantity that involve the properties of matter and can be recorded, tunaita ni physical quantities. And this physical quantity, my dear student, there are so several physical quantities that can be measured. As you can see, kwamba hizi physical quantity, my dear student, may include the length, the mass. Kwamba to assume yourself we want to get your weight. Kwamba tunachokifanya we take the instrument that is used to record the weight. Baada hapo tutapima na kuweza kurekodi ile weight yako. The example of the quantities used in measurements, we have the length, we have the mass, we have the time, temperature, force, speed, and so on. These are examples of the physical quantities. That the instrument that is used to take the measurements may involve this lens. As we know that the lens, it is like the distance. If we want to record the distance between 2 points, hiyo tunaita lens. But my dear student, also we have the mass. Why mass we term as the physical quantities? This mass is called the physical quantity because it helps us to take the measurements. Aidha tunataka tuweze kupima kilo ya sukari. Tunachokifanya, tunachukua instrument ambayo inakuwa inatumika kuweza kurekodi hiyo kilo ya sukari. Kwa tutaweka, baada hapo tutaangalia ipo kwenye ni kiasi gani, ni kilogramu kiasi gani, aidha ni nusu au ni 2 kilogram. We will obtain it by using it is an instrument. The time, my dear student, as we know that you are at the school, that we measure the time. If either you want to know the time that you use to reach at the school, or the time that you use so as to turn back to at your home, go we record the time. Even at the period, the class periods, tunakuwa tunaona kwamba maybe ni conducted under the time, kwamba muda unapoisha wa mwalimu mmoja, kwamba kinachotokea pale, mwalimu wa kipindi kinachofuata atakuja pale atakwambia kwamba kipindi kimeisha, hiki ni kipindi chetu. Kwa how we can identify, how we can measure the time. Also the temperature. Temperature, my dear student, is an example of the measurements. Kwa nini tunasema temperature ni example of the measurements? Because this can vary. All of these examples of measurements, my dear student, can vary. Zinakuwa zina vary. It means kwamba zinakuwa zina change. Temperature ina uwezo wa kuincrease na ina uwezo wa kupungua. Also we have the speed, and finally we have the force. All of these are examples of the measurements, my dear student. So after there, let us go and see the types of the physical quantities. In physical quantity, my dear student, we have only 2 types. One of them is called the fundamental quantity, and the second is called the derived quantities. But when we talk about the fundamental quantity, my dear student, these are the quantities that cannot be derived from the other quantities. Zile quantity ambazo hatuwezi tukazipata kutoka kwenye quantity nyingine tunaziita ni fundamental quantities. And these are so many examples of the fundamental quantities, my dear student. As you can see here, for example, a fundamental quantity mass can be measured directly using the beam balance. This always we obtain directly from the instrument, my dear student. These are fundamental quantities. It cannot depend from the other quantity. Huwezi ukapata masi labda kutoka kwenye quantity nyingine. All of those quantity that cannot be obtained or derived from the other quantity tunazitem ni kama fundamental quantities. So let us go and see the examples of the fundamental quantities. We have several examples of the fundamental quantity, and it is units. As you can see here, we have the physical quantities, and also we have its own symbols. And also we have the SI unit and the symbols of that unit. So my dear student, one of the example of the physics of the fundamental quantity, we have the mass, but its symbol of mass is m, and it can be measured using the unit of the kilogram. Lakini the symbol of the unit of mass is called kg, kama tunavyo observe here. Also we have the length. Length is also a fundamental quantity because it can't be derived from the other quantity. its unit is always meter. Unit yake ni meter, lakini symbol of the length tunatumia L ndogo. But the meter, the symbol of the meter, I will use M, which represent as the meter. Also, we have the time, my dear student. This time is also the fundamental quantities. And it is symbol, my dear student, I will use T, the small t, which represent the time. But it is unit, I will use the second. Lakini symbol ya second tunatumia ni S. Also, my dear student, we have the temperature. Even the temperature is the fundamental quantities. But it is symbol, we use the large T. Lakini sauti yake ni Kelvin, ambayo symbol yake ni hiyo. Therefore, my dear student, I can conclude by saying that these are the physical quantities, and also this is the symbol of these physical quantities. But here at the second column, at the third column, represent the unit of this law of the physical quantities. But the fourth column, my dear student, represent the symbol of the unit of the physical quantities. So after there, let us go and see another types of the fundamental quantities. Another types of the physical quantities. As I told you that we have only two types of the physical quantities. So at the final types of the physical quantity is the derived physical quantities. This derived physical quantity, my dear student, are the quantities that can be obtained from the other quantities. We get all of these quantities from the other quantities. For instance, we have the mass, we have the force. Now, how did we get the force? We get the force by taking the mass times the acceleration due to gravity. Therefore, all of the derived quantity is made up by the fundamental quantities. Kwa zile fundamental quantity ndo zinakuwa zinatumika kuweza kutupatia zile derived quantities. If we take those derived quantities and simplify it, we will get the fundamental quantities. Let us read together our statement here, my dear student. So when we talk about the derived quantities, the quantities obtained by combining two or more basic quantities through the multiplication, division or the mathematical operations. Kwa hizi ni fundamental quantity ambao zinakuwa zinapatikana kwa kuunganisha either two more quantities. If we take two more basic quantities, this basic quantity we term as the fundamental quantities. If we take those fundamental quantity and combine it together, we will form the fundamental, we will form the derived quantities. But this can be combined by using either addition or multiplication or division, my dear student. Or you can use the other mathematical operations. This mathematical operation, my dear student, we learned in mathematics. Tuliona kwamba zile operation, the basic operation is like those addition, multiplication, subtraction, and the subtraction, and also the division. So after there, let us proceed reading our statement here. For example of the derived quantity, we have the speed. And this speed is called the derived quantity because it can be derived from the other quantities or from the fundamental quantities. We learned that we get the speed by taking the distance or the length per unit the times. Kwa zile length pamoja na time ambazo zinatengeneza speed, zile ndo fundamental quantity na ndo zinatusaidia sana kuweza kutengeneza ile speed. So here we are supposed to consider the table 1.2, which show the examples of the derived quantity with their respective unit. We are supposed to go and see the table 1.2. This table 1.2, my dear student, represent the derived physical quantities, and it is science. So welcome to see those fundamental, those derived quantities. As you can see here, this is the table number 1.2, and this table, my dear student, explaining about the derived quantities. For instance, we have the first column. This represents those derived quantities, but on the second column represent the unity of the measurements, or the unity of those derived quantities. But the third column, my dear student, it represents about the unity symbol. That how can we write the symbol of the unity of area? This is how the column number 3 represent. So, my dear student, we have the area as the derived quantities. Here inside the area, my dear student, inside the area we have two lengths, because we get the area by taking the length times the length. Kwa tuna fundamental quantity mbili. But the unity of those derived quantity, my dear student, is called the meter, the square meter. Kwa tunapima area always by using the square meter. But the unity of those unity symbol is called the meter square. Kwa hii hapa ndo ile meter square ambao ndo kipimo cha hii area inayo express au iliyosimama as the derived quantities. Also we have the volume. This volume is also the derived quantity because it can be derived from the other quantity, or we obtain the volume from the other physical quantity, or from the other fundamental quantity. For instance, we obtain the volume by taking the length times length times length. It means length cube. This represents the derived quantity. And its unity is the cube meter. The symbol of that of this volume, of this unity of volume, is called the meter cube. Also, the density. Density is also the derived quantity, my dear student, kwa sababu tunakuwa tunaipata kutokana na upatikanaji wa quantity zingine zile. For instance, we obtain the density by taking the mass per unit volume. Lakini by taking the mass per unit volume. Lakini inside the volume there is the length cube. Zote zile ni fundamental quantities. Kwa hizi ni zile ambazo zinakuwa zina depend from the other quantities. Also we have the speed, my dear student. Speed is obtained by taking the distance per unit time. But the unit will be the meter per second. Lakini symbol yake itakuwa ni m/s. This is how the derived quantity can be obtained. Also we have the acceleration. Acceleration is obtained by taking the speed divided by time. Kwa unit yake itabidi tuchukue ile unit ya speed then to divide over time. Itakuwa ni meter per second square. That is the derived quantity, my dear student. Also we have the force. The unit of force, my dear student, is called the Newton. Lakini inside the Newton there is the kilogram, there is the meter, and also the second. Kwa sababu tunapata ile force kwa kuchukua ile masi times either by acceleration due to gravity or times or you can take the mass times the acceleration times the acceleration ambao ni A. Also we have the pressure. Pressure is obtained by taking the force per unit area. Now when we take this force per unit area and simplify it, we will get the fundamental quantities. And finally, we have the unit of this pressure is Newton per meter square. Or sometimes we can take it as the part, it means in Pascal. Those unit pressure, my dear student. Also, we have the potential difference. Potential difference is also the derived quantities because it can be obtained from the other quantities. For instance, the unit is volts, which is represented by the symbol V. So after looking this table which expresses about the derived quantity, my dear student, now we can conclude by saying that with the examples, we can conclude by saying that all of those we have learnt is about how the measurements can take place. How did the fundamental quantities and also the derived quantities can be obtained. So after that, my dear student, I'll conclude this session by giving you a task that you can answer this question. You can try to answer this question related with what we learned on this session. So our task said that with examples, give 4 differences between the fundamental quantities and the derived quantities. Now we are supposed to use the examples so as to differentiate between the fundamental quantities and also the derived quantities. You have to try to differentiate this to answer this question, my dear student, because you can't know how this question can appear, either for your final examination or for the examination that appear at your school or the mock examinations. So by saying that this is the end of our session, my dear student, now I would like to welcome you again for another session. I wish you all the best.